And now, more You Talk. Now,
welcome to You Talk. This is Steve, and going to have a great conversation about something that is important to everybody. We're going to be talking about relationships, friendships, and specifically about dating, navigating the mobile dating culture of today. We've got somebody who's written a book on it. She's got a lot of expertise, and her name is Kristin Fry. She is the author of Beyond Swipe. Hey, Kristen, welcome to the show.
Hi. Great
to have you. You're a speaker. You're an author. You're a consultant. I don't know what else you are.
I feel like that pretty much covers it.
Well, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today on the show. You have written a great book, Beyond the Swipe. Great book. A lot of good stuff. Let's jump right into it. We want to talk today about navigating mobile dating culture. Yeah. So how did the book happen? I mean, where did this book, you had to sit down and write this book. What was the motivation for you to do it?
Honestly, this might sound really silly, but I think for me, I was just getting frustrated seeing that there were a lot of married men who had a lot to say about this topic. And I just thought that is really fascinating. Number one, the fact that they're married. So that's what you're allowed to have an opinion about whatever you want. So that's not a big deal.
Okay, cool.
But that the dominant voices in single people's dating relationships are coming from married men who had never experienced dating around technology. And so I thought, and I just kept seeing that over and over again. And so I thought, gosh, why isn't there anyone who can offer a female perspective? Because there really wasn't anything. And then someone who's actually lived through this whole dating culture of technology. And so, I've seen technology, I've seen what it's done, what it hasn't done. And so, honestly, it was just this motivation to want to create these Me Too moments. Like, let me give you a Me Too moment as opposed to, I can imagine if dating apps were around during my time, then I would think, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. However, It's a very different kind of perspective.
Absolutely.
So that's honestly where it came from.
So did you, compile research? Was it just kind of a one-on-one thing, or as you happened about, because you do a lot of speaking, you do consulting. Was it just gathering all these things together and boom, Beyond the Swipe happens?
Right. It was a kind of a little bit of everything you just said. It was, for my career, I've spent a lot of time around 20s and 30s and I would say the 18-year-olds to 30-year-old singles. So just spent the bulk of my career in that age demographic and hearing the stories and the frustrations and the good things as well. Sure. But really everything in between. And then, so when I decided, that's it, I'm going to see if I can be a voice in this because I want to offer perspective, but really hope. And so I started to be really intentional about doing focus groups. And so I showed up at people's homes. I showed up to small groups. I had one-on-one interviews. I put stuff out on social media. I did email surveys. I did in-person surveys. Basically, however you could gather data from someone who was single. And I did it. And here's what was super interesting to me is that, and this was probably, maybe 2 to 3 years ago that I was doing all of this. Mm-hmm. But there was still a little bit of a stigma around dating like that through technology, meaning there were some people who were a little bit uncomfortable admitting that that's what they were doing. And so I had a lot of people give me their personal experience, but asked to be anonymous because they didn't want to be associated with trying to date through technology, which I think is interesting. I don't know that there's that same stigma now, just fast forward 2 or 3 years, maybe a teeny bit, but it was really interesting to me, the amount of people who requested to be anonymous.
See, I don't think there's as much of a stigma now. I was thinking, as you were saying, I was thinking back to a buddy of mine, and we had the conversation probably 4 years ago. We were having lunch. I said, "Hey, how did you meet your wife?" He goes, kind of puts his head down. He's looking around. It was like social media. It was on a dating app, and I thought, Mark, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You met her, you connected, you found the right person. That's great. So I think it's much different now because it seems like weekly there's some kind of new dating app that's coming out, whether it's, finding somebody in another country, finding somebody who works on a farm, somebody who's a cowboy. I mean, it's just kind of all over the map.
Right. I mean, the options are endless. You can be as specific as you want.
You really can. And I guess you could spend half your life trying to find that person going on all these different apps. Right. How important is it? I mean, we all want relationships. We're wired for relationships. Not everybody necessarily for being married, but I mean, everybody wants friendships, relationships, and most people are kind of headed that direction. But how important is it to know what you're looking for? I mean, it seems like a lot of people, it's like, I just want somebody. Just give me somebody. Boom, boom, boom. And yet I think you allude to some of this in your book we better know what we're looking for. How important is that?
I think it's really important. I mean, first of all, we all know that dating is trial and error. So there's an element where, I mean, part of dating is you're trying to figure out who you fit with, who you don't, who you jive with, who you don't. And I just think there's no harm in any of that. However, if you are convinced that I will only date someone, this is a terrible example, by the way, but I'm going to use it to be extreme for the sake of the conversation.
All right,
if you are convinced I will only, or I only want to date someone who's 6 feet tall and with brown eyes, but you don't ever, you know that in your head, but you don't ever say that out loud, and you keep on going on all these dates with men who have blue eyes and are 5'10", and you just keep getting frustrated over and over again. Well, if you never actually specified what you were looking for, if that's what you're looking for, then why are you saying yes to everyone else? Likewise, for me, it's important that you're a person of integrity, that you are a Christian. So if I can figure out from the very beginning that, hey, we probably don't view faith in the same way, then I'm probably not going to say yes to you, as opposed to going on a date and then getting far into it and then being frustrated because, wait a minute, you don't view faith the way I view faith. Well, had I set that expectation on the front end, that would have saved us both time and maybe even heartache. So how do you, let's just use that as an example. How do you, do you bring that up right away in the equation before there's even a date necessarily? Of course, in today's world, that it's way different. But I mean, do you have let's use that and a list of? Do you encourage people to have this list of things? I mean, not necessarily the height and eye color or whatever, but base faith, integrity. I mean, well, here's what I would say. I would say that's going to look different for everyone. Everyone needs to make a list of their non-negotiables and then a list of their preferences. And I would probably say, why don't you go ahead and run that list through a different set of eyes that aren't yours, because you might find you really think this is a non-negotiable, but it's probably more like a preference. So maybe you should move that over. But when you have these lists of, these are the things I will not bend in, these are these are core values of mine in how I approach people, faith, or relationships in life. And then these are this would be really fun. It'd be really fun if you were a comedian. That's not a non-negotiable.
No, that's true. I mean, because all of us some of us try that and fail. It kind of falls flat, and it's not as funny as we thought it was. Right. But
But I just think it's going to look different for everybody. And so I would never want to set the list of non-negotiables or preferences for someone else, because only you can decide that for yourself. Because some of these things, the preferences, that's subjective. So you're going to ascribe that a certain weight, which probably is going to be different than what I am going to decide is a good match for me. So, which I think is really interesting. I think we can get a little bit twisty with that. Because we can be dating someone and think, oh, they're a great match for me because of X, Y, and Z, and your friend might go, oh, why? I hate that, and talk you out of it, or the vice versa. But again, you're the one who's in the relationship, not them. Of course, you always want, wisdom spoken into whatever you're doing. But
you want your friends and or family to, not everybody, but you want some kind of input in case you're just and you're going down the wrong path. I was just thinking here for a minute. I speak a lot to middle school, junior high, high school students, sometimes college students in school assemblies. Is this list different depending upon the age you are? Because I'm thinking about these two junior high girls that came up to me after an assembly, and this one was just beside herself. I don't know what I'm going to do because I thought he loved me. And I'm looking at her going, girl, you're like, you're seventh grade. I mean, you got your whole life ahead of you. And it was like her life had her life was over. Maybe we put too much emphasis on, I don't know, because I look at these students that I talk to and thinking, guys, you're trying to, you don't need to get married right now. You don't need to make that commitment right now. Go out and have fun. Find out what you like, what you don't like, that kind of a thing. Does that list change, or is that just?
That's a good question. I know I'm thinking about that as you're talking, like what would a list, I'm trying to think of what a list looked like for me when I was 18 versus when I was older, or when I was 16. Yeah. I think when I was 16, 17, 18, a list for me looked like 3 pages of, single space on a computer screen.
Whoa, that's a tough one to please.
Because that's what you do when you're younger. You make lists of, but when you start to, you get out of high school and you're in college and you're in your 20s and you're older, you start making a different kind of list and you realize, oh, actually, I'm looking at more of these core life values.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we approach people the same? Do we approach finances the same? Do we approach how we make decisions in a similar way, as opposed to, I really want someone who plays basketball, not football, basketball.
And who's center on the basketball team.
Right. That stuff tends to fade away as we get more life experience and realize what's really important for the long run, which how someone approaches relationships and decision making is going to be way more important if they're center for the basketball team.
Well, it seems like we need to, and it's interesting because this is the first time, I don't know if we told you this is the first time we've talked about this subject on our Instagram live show. And it's like, why have we waited? Because this is such an important issue. It wrecks so many lives, not just younger lives. I mean, you just see people devastated. And then it seems like a lot of them carry it from their teens and 20s to when they get married. And you see these marriages just falling apart. And you go back and say, could it be, in one way, what we've been talking about, they didn't know what they were looking for. They settled. And now it's almost too late, but they're in the relationship. They got to make it work, that kind of thing. It seems like we ought to do more talking about it at home, in school, if you're involved, if you're a faith person in church, having friendships, healthy friendships, rather than settling in. And you're the only one I'm going to date my entire teen life. I hear this so much. You probably do too, and it's like, so you've got your whole life ahead of you. Find out what you like, what you don't like. Go out and have fun, and you limit yourself. It's like they lock in. They've got to have this person, but they're not getting to know anybody else. And, life's a bigger picture.
Yeah. And you brought up a really good point. So many times I've seen it. I've been tempted to do it myself as well. You see people settle because in relationships because they tell themselves a lie. Women do this especially. Girls really, really do this. They tell themselves a lie that there will never be anyone better. And so they think, well, this is as good as I'm ever going to get. Or, well, he has most of the things that are a non-negotiable and a core value. Not all of them, but this is probably enough. So it's like women just are always constantly doing this, just playing this mental game, honestly, with themselves that says this is as good as it's going to get. And I think one of the things that I really wanted to communicate to women is you never have to settle. Like, if you are ever telling yourself this is good enough or this is as good as it's going to get, that's a lie. That is a straight up lie, because the right man, you will never have those question marks when a female is dating the right guy that she's supposed to be with. You're never going to think this is as good as it's going to get, or I won't get anyone better. Never. That won't be in the equation.
Now, you brought up something that important. When is good enough? You know what I mean? It's like you said, well, you won't have those feelings. How are you going to know then? I mean, because and you allude to this again in your book, and I think we'll save that for another conversation, a longer conversation. But how do you know? You say, okay, they meet this criteria, this. Okay, I guess we're good.
I think at some point you got to make a choice. I mean, love's more than a feeling. That's also a choice. You got to make a decision. True. I think there's that element too. Again, I can't make that decision for anyone. I mean, that's only a decision that each person has to make for themselves. But when they have the feedback from their friends or the people who know them both well, and when they're looking at, hey, here's where the non-negotiables, and you're looking at, here we're going in the same direction, and we're viewing life and life values the same. At some point, you make the decision. You just make the decision that you're going to be all in or you're not. And there's
what about adding in this whole thing of just being comfortable? You're comfortable around that person. It seems like can be a key factor too. You're not worried about what you say.
You're not editing your thoughts.
You're just being you. You're just being real. You're being genuine, because all that's going to go away if you get into a deeper relationship.
Right. If you find yourself editing your thoughts or hiding parts of who you are, which I've been in a relationship like that before, hiding parts of who I am or just editing the things that I said, it's like that's an indicator. Oh, there's something about who I am that I don't feel, that either I'm afraid this person won't accept me, or I already know this person isn't comfortable with that. Red flag. That's a red flag.
No, absolutely. And I've been in a relationship before where it's just constant tension because you're afraid of what you're going to say, and is she going to be all right with this? And it's like, no, thank you. No, I have no interest in that whatsoever. You want to be around somebody who's comfortable, who's genuine with you. Now, before we lose sake of time, you, as we discussed you coming on the show, you gave us 3 kind of major nuggets out of your book. And we're only going to tackle one tonight because they're all good. But it's the phrase digital breadcrumbs, digital baiting. Unpack that, because I think it happens a lot more than we realize.
Right. So they're talking about, those are two phrases to describe 2 totally different things. But digital breadcrumbing, I think we all know what that is. We probably don't know that that's what it's called. Yeah. But it's where you're stalking or looking, whatever word you would like to use, someone's social media, their Instagram, their Facebook, Snap, whatever, and you are sporadically, liking or commenting for the purpose of you're trying to get their attention. And so or you're commenting on all their things. It's the digital version of, hey, hi, or giving someone a look across the room, or saying hi, or going up and introducing yourself. So there's that form of it where you're.
So it's putting this trail of things. Then
you're trying to get someone's attention because you want them to now follow it. You want them. Who is that liked that? Yeah. And so I've seen it used as well, where someone has specifically said they're not interested in you, but they keep kind of sporadically dropping all these hints to try to change your mind. And try to, maybe if I comment enough, maybe if I filter through the past 2 years of photos and comment on those, what if I get you to pay attention. So it's just, we're dropping breadcrumbs to get someone to follow it, to give us attention. Attention for the purpose of, we want to have a relationship, most likely outside of social media.
Yeah, because you can only go so far with that. So what about the digital
digital baiting is typically happens, and I always tell women specifically, which women do this to men as well, but I just hear more stories of men doing it to women. I tell women to steer clear of this, but digital baiting is when you get the text message that says bunch of nothing. Hey, hi, nothing. And so you're just throwing bait out to see, is the person on
are they going to bite?
Is the person going to receive the bait, and are they going to do something with, it's such a passive style of communication. And you see it, usually it happens when the person is afraid, that fear of being rejected, or you see it happen a lot with men when they're bored and they're going at night and they're going through their phone looking for someone to give them attention. And so they're just scrolling through, hey, give me attention. But especially for a female, if a guy does that to her and she has interest, and all of a sudden this hey comes across the screen, she's going, probably a knee-jerk reaction is, oh, he likes me. Nah, don't fall for that. That's straight up, do not fall for that. A man who's interested in you will communicate with you using a complete sentence and during an appropriate time of day, and not with this nondescript passive 11 p.m. text message. It's just bait. It's just bait.
All right, guys, are you listening? Gentlemen, are you listening?
Do not do that. Do not do that.
Kristen is saying, don't do that, okay? Just say what you want to say.
Use a sentence. Say what you want to say. Ask a question. Make a statement. None of this. Hey, none of that.
Good advice. Good stuff. Hey, with the online dating, and I mean, there's so much we really need to talk about here. Has COVID changed things, the dynamic of things? I mean, because obviously you wrote your book, Beyond the Swipe, before COVID, but a lot of great stuff in there for COVID. But from your standpoint,
I think initially it put everything on pause. I saw that initially, but that was for a very, very, very short window of time. I'm saying like 4 weeks is maybe what I saw. Because, and then COVID, which we all know, COVID highlighted all the ways we were isolated and disconnected from people. And so if anything, it created this desire even more for people who were not in a relationship to want to be in a relationship, because it's real lonely when you are forced to stay away from everyone and be stuck at home.
That it is.
So, that makes perfect sense. But I think some of the things that I've seen, the way it's changed is that it's put more emphasis on a first date, because it's forced people to have those initial, even conversations over FaceTime, as opposed to, who cares? We'll just meet in person out at coffee, no big deal, whatever. But because we have to be very cautious of our interactions with people right now during this season, it's put some of those initial conversations over FaceTime so that people aren't going out in public unnecessarily. And it's forcing a more pointed form of conversation, which I think is really good. And in some ways, I wonder if it's putting more emphasis on a first date, because the digital dating really took away that whole idea of the importance of a first date. It was just
good point.
So it just makes me wonder if you had to actually be more thoughtful in your conversation with someone when all you have is a screen and you're sitting in whatever part of your house. As you know, there's no one around you to distract you. So you can't make small talk about the dog or the waiter or whoever's walking past you. It's just that person. And
you're not getting a lot of body language.
No.
Because you're not there with them. Interesting point. Very, very interesting. So this is such a loaded question, but kind of a takeaway for people in our audience now. What are some of the key factors you see with the research you've done, the writing you've done, and of course the interaction and focus groups and everything else? Take that and put it, what are the tips you have for navigating mobile dating culture in a pandemic?
My biggest advice, which I think this spans well beyond the pandemic, is just communicate clearly. Be direct and be clear. Say what you mean, say what you want, and be kind about it. Do not assume the other person can read your mind. Don't assume that their comfort level is the same as yours. Don't assume they'll want to go where you want to go, do what you want to. Don't assume any of that. Just be clear and direct in your communication. And that, I think, if people in a dating situation can learn that will pay dividends in a long-term relationship and a marriage. If you can learn how to communicate well in a way that honors you and honors the other person, that you can listen carefully, but you are not afraid to say what you really want because you're not afraid of the repercussion on the other side. I just think that, I don't know, from my seat now, I think that's a huge value of mine. So I'll leave it at that.
And you just referred to something there. You really, I guess, if you're communicating clearly, you're communicating what you want or would like to have, you're putting it out there with the risk of finding out they're not as interested in that as I am. And I guess that's where the difference is with the first date, because the first date's usually much more casual and, all the things you mentioned, the distractions, and okay, maybe we got coffee and maybe next time we'll do a burger or whatever it is. But it seems like communication is so huge, and zeroing in on one word you use, listen, instead of hear. We've got to listen to each other, really, to what they're not trying to go beyond what they're saying, but it's more than just randomly hearing it. Listen to what they're saying.
Right,
and
right.
respond on that. And clear, like you said, clearly communicate.
Yes.
How
yes.
can somebody get a copy of your book? I want to make sure we mention that before we lose time here.
Oh, Amazon. Amazon's the best way. Amazon,
Okay.
the maker of all things.
Beyond the Swipe by Kristin Fry. How do people stay in touch with you or kind of see what you're doing if you want them to be stalking you? Or
Right. I'm
That's a
kind
whole
of,
thing.
right. I'm a little bit boring to stalk. However, you can. My Instagram is K Fry Girl because Kristen Fry was taken. So K Fry Girl is
Hey, Fry Girl. Okay,
yep,
good.
how you would find me on Instagram.
We're really big here at UTalk in making a difference, changing the world. And it seems to me we can change the world in the way we approach dating. So what would you say to our audience within the confines of dating, that dating universe, if you will have it, that dating bubble? What could we individually do to change? Because it can be brutal. It's a brutal universe.
Right. I think when my first thought is to be kind and show respect. And that can look like major in the minor things, because when you major in the minor things, that really goes a long way. There's so much lack of respect and so much unkindness going on right now. And kindness and respect look so simple. Like, look someone in the eye when you talk to them. Tell them thank you at the end of the night. Hold a door open for them. Listen to what they're saying. Ask thoughtful questions. Just show that, hey, I respect you as a human, regardless of if I ever want to date you or not. I'm still going to be kind, and I would expect that someone's going to treat me with that same level of kindness and respect. And it's okay if we never speak again. But for the moment, for the 30, 60, 90 minutes that we're together right now, like, let's just show a little bit of kindness to each other and show that I value you as a human being, and you have a lot to offer, whether or not that's a great fit for me. And so I just really think if we could all just figure out how to do that one simple little thing, that would really go a long way.
It really would. It's interesting because with UTalk, we've started kind of slowly and quietly this thing we call hashtag goodbye to mean, because there's so much meanness, and of course we initially applied that to bullying, but it's just, there's so much meanness, even obviously beyond the dating culture and the whole thing of respecting, respect and be kind. It's not rocket science.
No,
it's simple. It's simple, but it really could change. It could make a huge change in our world. And I like what you said, whether you ever see that person again, you ever have contact with that person again, it's not that you hate them or anything else, but if you can be kind to them and respect, then you've had the opportunity to share that. They've had the opportunity to receive that, but it should be a both and. It should be going back and forth, really. Being respectful, being kind, and you learn that, and it really can make a huge difference in this challenging world in which we live, this uncertain world in which we live. So,
right.
No, good stuff. Okay, once again, you can get your book Beyond the Swipe on Amazon, and then You're Boring, but people can still follow you anyway at K Fry Girl.
Correct.
Any plans for another book or?
Gosh, I don't even know. I don't know that it will be on this topic, but but you never know. I think I really do have a passion for the younger women, though, to really thrive personally and professionally. So I think if there's ever going to be another book, it's going to fall somewhere into that category.
Something, yeah. Awesome. That would be great, because there's definitely a need for that. You do have a passion. You've got experience, and you're able to articulate, which is great. My heart aches when I see young guys and young girls who are just making a mess out of things because they're not stepping back. And I think part of it, you talk about this in your book, which is a whole nother topic, is identity, being secure in who you are and what you're all about and your purpose. And you don't sell yourself off, in a sense, settling for something that's less than what you deserve, because we all deserve that respect and that kindness. So we appreciate you taking time. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you again about some of these other topics, because it's just one of those things that, again, I'm surprised it's the first time we've been talking about it on this platform, because it's so critical. Everybody is so relationally driven, and especially during the pandemic. So, Kristen, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Appreciate your book.
You're welcome.
It's very practical, and you can just translate that. You're smart enough to do that, guys. So
Correct.
Anyway, Kristen, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.
This is You Talk Radio.